So I'm fresh on what you had noted originally, but would love just to like hear from you where you're at with your mini right now and like what your main concerns are.
Yeah, so basically I started her on raw in January because she's had chronic UTI issues, and I know that the brands they recommended me are just crap. It's just fillers and it's high in sodium, so it's just like she's eating salt basically that makes her thirsty. So I didn't
Yeah.
want to go that route. And I went raw and it's been improving, getting better. We tested urine and it had been improving. So they wanted me to check again later. But our main thing is I want to know, like, I'm just feeding the pre-made, and then occasionally, like, I'll add, I just got fish too, so that I can add fish for the omegas, but other
Uh-huh.
stuff I can help with nutrition, such as I was making kefir, but I was worried I was doing it wrong. So I stopped making kefir. Yeah, and I just want to know more about like how much I should feed her. I never really know how much I should take out of the pre-made before I put in other stuff because I don't want
Hmm.
too much of anything.
Yeah, definitely. And then you had also noted like she had had a period with like some pretty chronic GI upset. Do you feel like you're past that now?
It's on and off still. Um,
Okay.
I may be doing something wrong when it comes to feeding the raw, like if maybe I'm not sanitizing properly or something like that. Um, but it'll be as if she's got a stomach ache. She'll kind of play bow and then walk low to the ground, and then
Okay.
sometimes she'll have diarrhea, and occasionally, like rarely, she'll puke, and then it goes
Yeah.
away. Anytime I brought her to the vet, they're like, "There's nothing wrong with her. We can't do anything."
Yeah. Sometimes when they do that like stretching motion, it can be from gas in their system.
She does
It,
fart a lot.
yeah, so it could totally be that. Also, like sometimes you'll see it kind of like more like acid reflux, but it doesn't sound like she is having that because it's like very obvious. Just look at her, she's so cute. Um, so she could just be really gassy, which would make sense.
Okay.
So something to consider is, has she ever had her microbiome tested?
No.
Okay. So I don't, because you're in Canada, right?
Yes, I am.
So like something that some vets will do here, more like holistic vets, is they'll do a fecal swab, and what they can do is figure out if their gut microbiome is like in is balanced or not, and if it's not, like what is causing the issues, like is there too much bad bacteria, or is there like too much of a certain type of bacteria that could just like cause some of these things. So like if it's just something that's like really 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 chronic, it could be something to look into, but it doesn't really sound like she is like super in a bad place.
Hmm.
But that's just like something to keep a note of. Okay. So she has like random GI upset, but her UTIs are in check since starting the raw.
Yes, they're improving. I haven't rechecked urine since my last recheck because they said to wait a few weeks to a few months because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the food. I didn't tell them she's on raw because all the vets here in town are against it,
Yeah,
and they preach for their royal canons, so I just don't.
yeah. I've been there. I know how that feels. Do you rotate the proteins that she eats? Do you think, have you noticed any correlation of certain proteins making her gassy?
So I actually take notes of when she's on what, and I record her weight. So I noted that it was mainly duck and turkey
Okay.
that she had those. And I had a question because I try to do training with her food, but obviously with raw, you got to use it really quick outside. I
Yeah,
try to limit it to 10 to 15. Is that too long? Should I just like do it with 5 to 10 minutes?
that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, totally fine.
Okay.
Totally fine. Interesting. So like the duck and turkey, do you give her chicken at all?
I don't, but I thought maybe I'll try turkey, but it looks like she's getting like really itchy eyes again, so probably not.
Yeah, so like it could be a poultry thing, which is common. Like you'll hear a lot of people say, like, my dog can't eat anything with feathers. So it's one of those things. And it can be because poultry meats are very high in omega-6. So, kind of what you were alluding to about feeding fish to balance the omegas, when a dog is eating a diet that's too high in omega-6, it can cause inflammation, which could be the source of some of that GI upset that you're seeing, or just like intolerance to it, you know? So that's awesome that you're taking notes and that you could identify that trend. Have you tried avoiding poultry protein since you noted that?
I haven't, just because I got so much of it. I was like, "Ugh." I put her on what we have here. It's called it's called Natural Rawls with a
Mm-hmm.
W in there. And she did good on that. Didn't lose any weight. Her weight was steady. She didn't really have a lot of issues. And then I wanted to, because I know that swapping brands can sometimes be good because different vegetables they use, different processes.
Yeah.
Swapped to the canine choice, and she lost so much weight on that. So now I'm trying to get her back up again.
Okay.
Because she went from 16.8 pounds, which she was a little over, but I was pretty happy where she was. And now she's between 15.2 to 15.6.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
we've gotten really active, and I've increased her food, but she's still not really gaining. So I'm guessing like increase it again.
Yeah. So, okay. Yes. So, like, for the general healthy dog that doesn't have any sensitivities, rotation and varieties encouraged. But if you have a dog that's like sensitive and you just find something that works, like, don't feel guilty with just sticking with what works. Like, you would rather just stabilize her than, you trying a bunch of different things. So I would stick to what works now, which sounds like it says Naturals brand. And then if you think maybe she's having a sensitivity to poultry, but you had bought all of those proteins, like maybe just try to mix the poultry into the other types of proteins so she's not eating so much of it at once. That could definitely help.
Okay.
That makes sense. So like maybe you'd feed like 25% duck and like 75% beef or something. So that could help. And then what was I going to say? Oh, for the weight. Okay, so you said, so what is her ideal weight, do you
I'd
think?
say probably between 16.2 to 16 and a half pounds
Okay, so I'm
around
pulling up my
there.
phone. I'm going to do a little calculation. Okay, so let's use 16 and a half pounds as just a reference point. Um, oh my gosh. Is she usually pretty active?
Winter months, we're lazy, but summer, yes, we're hiking, biking, running. And now that we've just picked it up because it's gotten warmer, I've found that it's harder to keep weight on her and I have to increase it.
Yeah, that's typical. So like how much are you feeding her now? Because I just did the calculations of like 2.5% of her body weight at 16 and a half pounds would be like 7 ounces.
I use grams.
Oh gosh, okay. Oh yeah, because your food probably comes in grams, right?
It does.
Okay, hold on. But let me pull up Google really quickly. Ounces to
It's in
gram.
pounds and grams, so I usually use grams.
Okay. So that's like 199 grams.
Okay. So what I was feeding was I think I did I forgot to I think I did I'm doing 180 and then obviously also adding fish and whatever it is on top of that.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing to remember is like the different proteins
Yes.
probably have different calories.
Yeah.
So I always say, like, when you do these calculations, it's a starting point, but then like feed the dog in front of you. So if you notice she's getting a little slim, bump it up and vice versa. And I'm the same thing as you, is like, I purposefully try to put a couple pounds on my dog in the winter just to keep him warm. But then in the summer, I want to keep him lean, but we're a lot more active. So it changes how much I feed him. So yeah, like don't get so hung up on the numbers and the calculations. If she looks lean to you, just feed her more. The thing that like would be a red flag is if you're feeding her like way more than it should be and she's not holding weight.
Yeah.
That would be something different.
Mm.
Um, but do you feel like you could maybe just be underfeeding her? Or do you feel like there's like a medical thing underneath?
No, I think I haven't found the right amount now since summer, because obviously I've only been feeding raw since winter, so I don't know
Yeah.
where to go for there. And I obviously don't want to overfeed because I'd rather my dog slightly lean than overweight.
Yeah.
But she changes weight so quickly that it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I would start feeding her. I'm like, I don't know what this is in grams, but you're feeding her like 180 grams right now, you said?
I'll just look back here. Yeah, so on Natural, she was on 160, and that was in winter in January, and she can like her weight was even. And
Okay.
then come spring, I upped it to 170. She was still losing weight, so I upped it again to 180, and it looks like from the 15th, so this last week, she's just been steady.
Okay.
No gain, no loss.
Okay. So I think if if she's still, because you still want her to gain like a half pound, right?
Probably, I'd be happy if she at least got to 16 pounds.
Yeah.
Just right now, like you can obviously see a dip. I can feel her hip bones and her spine and her like, and she's fluffy, so I shouldn't.
Yeah. So I would try feeding her like closer to 200 grams and then seeing how quickly she's putting on the weight.
Hmm.
Because when I did the calculation off of her ideal weight of 16 and a half pounds, that was 7 ounces, which is 200 grams. So if you're feeding her 200 grams, if she gains weight appropriately, that should get her to 16 and a half pounds and hold her there.
Okay.
You don't want to, like, some people are just so antsy to get their dogs to gain weight that they just feed them a lot off the bat. And then they say, when they get to that weight, I'll just cut back. But it's not really healthy for a dog to gain weight that quickly. So I would just increase her feeding, and like what you're doing, just keep track if she's gaining weight or
Okay.
not. And also, has she been spayed yet?
She has.
Okay, so usually dogs that are spayed carry weight more easily. But she's also kind of young. She's like a year old, did you say?
3. She turns 3
3.
in April, at the end of April.
Okay, so like that makes your job easier because she's done growing and she's been spayed. So you really should just be able to put the weight on her without too many variables of like growth or hormones.
Okay.
So I would try, yeah, bumping up closer to 200
Okay.
grams.
The other thing I was confused and had a question, like you said, different proteins have different, obviously some are more lean than others. Should
Yeah.
I be adjusting that to if I'm feeding, say I'm feeding like, I don't know, duck, and then I'm feeding beef, should there be different amounts for that?
So it depends on the brand.
Okay.
Some brands formulate their different proteins in a way that every package has the same amount of calories, knowing that people rotate to make their jobs easier. Some don't. So look at the packages and see if it's a different amount of calories per serving. So for you, it will probably be like per gram or per ounce, whatever. See if there's a difference. If it's the same across all of them, You really shouldn't, but then it's like not all calories are created equal, right? So like if it's a lamb food, it's probably fattier unless they've formulated it in a way to keep it consistent across their proteins. It really just depends on the brand.
Okay.
But like dogs also will process different things differently, just like us, right? So like she may hold weight better if she's eating a lot of red meat versus poultry, even if it's the same calories per serving.
Okay.
Yeah, like 100 calories from a salad is different than 100 calories from candy, you know?
Yeah.
Um, Okay, cool. And then you had asked about swapping out the toppers for the food.
Yeah, like I know I just did an order and I got naturals again because I know she did good on it. And I also bought pure fish. So it's 90%, I think, meat and muscles and organs, and then 10% bone.
Okay,
So it's obviously not a full complete meal. It's just
right. Exactly. So this is how you can think of it is anything over 20% of her daily food intake needs to be balanced. So like if you were adding that fish in and it's going to be more than 20% of her meal, then that fish addition would need to be balanced. So like the stuff you bought isn't, which is totally fine. So just make sure it's not accounting for more than 20% of her daily intake.
okay.
Does
So
that
that would be less. So I'd make sure that it's less than 20% of 200 grams.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and then with the fish stuff, that's a really good addition because I also know that you noted that she could have like some joint stuff going on. So that will be really, really helpful. Every dog, no matter what they eat, should have omega-3 added to their diet. And you're doing it the right way because they tend to digest it better when it's coming from a whole food source compared to the capsules. Because if she has a sensitive GI, that extra fat could upset her. So
Mhm.
you're doing it the right way, which is good. But that should really help her joints. And then, like, do you know for sure she has a joint issue?
So we did x-rays. I'm getting a second opinion because the vet I went to is he's like super old and kind of like if it's walking, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Getting a second opinion at the end of this month. I have x-rays and everything and videos. It's just sometimes she'll lean on the wall, weight off the one leg, like
Okay.
butt, and then when we're active outside, you can barely notice it, but I know her is
Yeah.
on the right side. She'll do a slight hop in some of her steps.
Yes. Okay. That sounds really similar to what I'm dealing with my dog right now. He does this like weird like skip
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
and people don't notice it, but I like started at 10 months old was like his gait is not normal. So did they talk to you about maybe it being a luxating patella?
I've heard of that kind of stuff, and I was mentioning it to her, but she said that just as she was super busy and just wanted me to send all the X-rays, and then we'd go everything when she came. I
Yeah.
did have a friend recently that had luxating patellas with her mini American as well, and they had to get surgery done. But I don't know how to check for that. I'm like feeling her leg. I'm like nothing feels.
Yeah. Okay, so some tips from that, which I can tell you firsthand, is I know that in dogs her size, like she's probably around the same size-ish as my Springer Spaniel. The bigger the dog, the harder it is to find. Like in little dogs, it's really easy to do the exam because their structure is smaller. And with the bigger dogs, because they just naturally have more muscle, it's harder to diagnose it because it may not be easily popped out just period. So two things is don't like it's good to get a second opinion, but don't let a ton of vets try to pop it out because the more it gets popped out, the easier it luxates on its own.
Mhm.
So just be cognizant about that. It may not show on an x-ray, which it sounds like you got x-rays and it didn't show. If it's a low grade, like they're based on grades, 1 is the most mild, 4 is the most severe, and they usually don't recommend surgery until you get to like 3 or 4. You can make a massive improvement in your dog by building up the muscles in the legs, because if your dog has really strong muscles, it will keep the kneecap in place. So you can do it through exercise and diet, right? So like you feeding a raw diet is an automatically a great step number 1, and keeping her lean is a great step number 2. But do a lot of what you're doing, like the running, the jumping, the like stuff to build her back leg strength. Swimming is really, really, really good for that.
Yeah, she enjoys swimming once we get warmer. It's cold right now.
Yeah. Totally. So like when the warm months come around, like which is what I do with my dog, is I try and just get him to swim as much as possible. And I notice a big difference when we're in swimming season versus when we're not. So keep that in mind. And there's stuff on YouTube. If you just Google like canine rehab back leg strength, there'll be like a ton of videos that show up of like just silly stuff you can do at home with them. But for nutrition, raw diet we talked about, omegas we talked about. Omega-3s are really important to keep inflammation down. With luxating patellars or just like any joint issue, they're just more prone to developing arthritis, so that's really important. And then I would get her on a good joint supplement if she's not already. I'm not
looking into the stuff that you post on your Instagram.
Yeah.
Veterinary science?
Veterinary science, yeah. So I hope it's available in Canada. So like Glycoflex is what I give my dog. And then the other really popular one you'll see is Casequin or Dosequin. If any of those 3 are available in Canada, those are very reputable supplements that you can trust, and they have like everything in them that is needed. So like the big things are like glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM, and then some people will like throw in some extra stuff. But those 3 will cover your bases. The other thing is raw chicken feet, because chicken feet have a special type of collagen in them called type 2 collagen. And that's the collagen that's responsible for building joint cartilage. So other types of collagen are the collagen that build like hair and nails, but type 2 is specific for joint cartilage. And that's going to be really important for her too, to prevent any like arthritis developing.
Okay. And even with her having potential poultry sensitivity, is that still something?
So the thing is like, okay, so you also could just not feed chicken feet. Like you can buy type 2 collagen in like capsules, and it's usually marketed toward humans, and you can buy the human kind, but then just do a quick Google search of a dose that would be appropriate for a dog your size, and you can give this stuff as long as like, you know, sometimes with human stuff they add like flavorings or whatever. Just avoid that, just like get the straight stuff. And that will do. The other thing would be like turmeric powder, like golden paste. I just bought some from a brand. I want to see if it's available. Do you know if Mercola products are available in Canada?
I have never heard of it, so I'm not sure.
I'm going to take notes. I'll send you a follow-up email with like some brands, and you can see if they're available in Canada or if they ship there for not a ton. What was the other one? Oh yeah, Rogue Pet Science. So you can always make your own golden paste. I have a recipe on my Instagram. I'll send you that video. But if you don't want to deal with making it, there are some companies that sell powders that have been altered to make them bioavailable. Turmeric is really great for anti-inflammatory and pain relief. And it's like golden paste is super cheap and easy to make. But again, if you're like me and you just don't want to make it, you can buy like bags of powders, or it comes in capsules. The thing is you'll see on Amazon like a ton of different options. They're not all good because for turmeric to be bioavailable, it needs like MCTs and some other things. And so some of the stuff like doesn't include that in their formula. So then it just goes straight through your dog. So if the brands that I send you aren't available in Canada, let me know and I can like tell you what to look for.
Okay.
But that would be something good for her too.
Yes. Okay.
And then with the omega-3, there is something called a therapeutic dose. So how do I explain this? So like too much omega-3 can actually be a bad thing. So there is like a ceiling that you want to be aware of. But for like the average healthy dog, that's what you'll see. Like if you were to buy capsules for her, the dosing on the bottle would be for like an average healthy dog that's just in maintenance mode. But there's a such thing called a therapeutic dose, which is like a bumped up version for dogs who need it like even more so without hitting that ceiling. So if you wanted to try and give her capsules to bump that up, just Google like therapeutic dose of omega-3 and you'll see a bunch of charts come up that will be by weight. And then it will tell you like this is the max amount, this is the recommended amount. So if you like wanted to try and give her capsules and see if it didn't upset her stomach, that would be one thing. Because like what you're feeding with the fish is a great addition, but it probably wouldn't hit that like therapeutic dose level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
What would be so I also have tripe and
Okay.
I'm not sure like if should I be feeding tripe every day, every other week, or like the percentage. I tried to Google percentage of feeding tripe for my dog, and then people are like, you can feed it as a whole meal, but make sure to balance the next one. And I was like,
Yeah. So like you're feeding complete and balanced food. So that's something that you could use is just like an addition every day and just count it into that 20% realm, you know? Or
okay,
even now, since you're trying to put weight on her, just like use it as a topper and don't account for that. But tripe is good. Tripe touches on the other thing I was going to mention for her is building up her microbiome. So tripe is really great for that. Raw goat's milk is also really good for that. The thing with raw goat's milk is sometimes people like overfeed it and then the dog can actually become dependent on it. So what you want to do is give her like 2 to 3 weeks of consistent feeding to build up her biome and then you go into maintenance mode. So maintenance mode would be like 1 week out of every month.
so 1 week.
And again, if she's never, well, she had kefir, so she should be pretty good with it. I was going to say because the goat's milk can be fatty, so if she is sensitive to fats, it could give her upset, but just like introduce it slowly. It's super digestible, so she shouldn't have an issue with it, but just try it and see what happens.
Okay. Is there I know you posted recently Primal. We have Primal in Canada.
You do.
Yes. And is that for kefir or is that goat's milk?
So that's goat's milk.
Okay.
It's a good option, and it also theirs has turmeric in it, so that kind of like checks the other box too. And then, do you guys have answers in Canada?
No, I went through, I saw your comments on your top recommended brands for dog food, and
Yeah,
every single one of them didn't ship to Canada and weren't in Canada.
I know, like classic, right? But Primal's a super good option. And honestly, like whatever brand you find of raw goat's milk in a store is gonna be reputable. It will be fine. So yeah, if you have Primal though, just use that.
Okay. And if I were to just get raw goat's milk from the store and you said something about the turmeric, could I add the turmeric to the raw goat's milk or does it not work like that and you have to add it a certain way?
Yeah, it doesn't really work because it needs the other stuff to be bioavailable. So even it's like even just how they have it, I'm not sure like how effective it is, because like who really knows what the dosing is in that. Um, but yeah, like if you wanted to use it as like a purposeful supplement, I would go the route of like buying it separately and like, feeding it based on the dosage of the package.
Okay.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, yes. If I'm adding raw goat's milk, does that also need to be accounted into that? You said the 20.
Good question. That's a great question. So the raw goat's milk in itself is like almost nutritionally complete. So I wouldn't worry about that part of it, but just being mindful that it's caloric. So it will help with putting on the weight, but if she's at a good weight that week that you're feeding it to her, just lessen her food a little bit to account for it.
Okay, so it's okay to take away from her actual meal to account for that.
Yeah, because it has a lot of nutrition in it. Um, but you would just need to take like, it's so hard because you're in grams, like a half ounce away or something, like a really small amount. Or since you're just doing it over a week, like don't even worry about it unless you notice that she puts on like a half pound or a pound, which with a dog her size, like I don't really think she would, because she's pretty active. She's not like a chihuahua.
No, she's not.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so counting into that 20% for the fish and the tripe,
Hmm.
say I'm feeding her 200 grams a day, so I split that, that's 100 grams. How much is okay to take out of that to account for that fish and tripe?
Yeah, so like, okay, so 200, so 20% of 200 is 20 grams.
Okay.
So it may just be easier for you one meal, just feed like 100 grams of raw food, and then another meal, 80 grams of raw food and 20 grams of toppers,
Okay. Okay.
just to make it easier. Um, and then I'm like, yeah, so like if you're only feeding 20 grams of the fish, it's probably not going to give her a ton of omega 3s. So I would try supplementing with some capsules or some oil and see if she can tolerate it. Just start slowly and build up to the recommended dose. And then I personally like capsules because they stay fresher longer. However, you can't fine tune a dose as well as you can like where you can pour it. Um, so maybe buy something small that is like a pump or that you can pour so you can just really finely tune it. And then just be mindful of how you store it. Some need to be refrigerated, but it will say it like in really fine print. So just be mindful. And then try to buy one that's like in glass, preferably. But if you can only get plastic, that's fine.
Okay. And that can be human specific as well, or should I just get?
Yeah, it can be human specific. Just be mindful that obviously it's not going to have the pet dosing on it. So just use whatever dosing you find in the therapeutic dosing chart. And then with omega 3s, how like it will be like fish oil, whatever. And it will say like this bottle is 300 milliliters of fish oil, whatever. But then it will also say how much of that is actual omega 3, EPA or DHA. So let's say like you get capsules and each capsule is 800 milligrams of fish oil, but only 600 of that may be omega 3. So you would do 600 times however many capsules to get that dose. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing how they do that.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and then for accounting for what's in the fish that I'm already feeding, how do I figure out how much omega's in that? Would it say on the packaging?
It should say on the packaging.
Okay.
Um, it will either say like a percent and then you can do the math, or the grams. if it doesn't say in the package, whatever type of fish it is, let's say it's like herring, you can just find online like how much omega-3s herring has like in a gram or whatever. Um, but yeah, that's a good point because if you're doing the therapeutic dose, you don't want to go over the
Yeah.
max dose. So just be mindful of that. If anything, err on the side of caution.
Yeah, and she's small too. So sometimes I found like even when I was feeding kibble, it says a recommended amount for her, but she just gains so much weight for the recommended amount. I had to feed a custom amount for her.
Yeah.
So
Totally. That's so common. That's like how we get so many fat dogs, and people are like, I'm feeding the recommended amount. And I'm like, that doesn't mean it's right for your dog. Come on.
yeah, when she was a puppy, I fed the recommended amount, which was like a cup and a half, and she was only like 10 pounds
Oh, whoa. Yeah.
a day too, or something like that, crazy. And yeah, she was very fat for the first little bit of her life.
We've been there in my house too. Don't worry. Any other questions or like concerns?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything. Um, are there any other good recommended toppers other than, because I'm thinking I'll start doing turmeric and the goat's milk and
Mhm.
our omega-3s, as well as adding in some tripe here and there.
Yeah. Blueberries are good. They
Have
have antioxidants that can only be found in blueberries.
perfect.
And the recommended serving is like 4 to 5 blueberries per pound the dog weighs. But honestly, I just toss like a small handful in the bowl and call it a day. Um, and you can just buy the bags of frozen ones too. Like you don't have to buy the expensive fresh ones. Just make sure that they didn't add any sugar. Like sometimes if you buy the ones meant for making smoothies and stuff, they'll like add sugar to them. So just make sure it's not that because she doesn't need that.
Nope.
Um, and then you're doing the fish. Also, if you just wanted to add up straight up sardines, like the tinned sardines.
Yeah, I was for a while. It's just they go bad so quickly. I
I
didn't
know.
think of freezing them, and they're such a small thing.
I know with the smaller dogs, it's harder because you can't just like dump the
Uh,
thing there. And then we talked about the raw goat's milk. Green leafy vegetables are good. Just make sure that you either steam them or like whiz them in a food processor beforehand to make them bioavailable. So, like kale, broccoli, spinach, anything dark green and leafy. And then like fruit in moderation because it's sugary.
yeah.
Um, Orange and yellow vegetables can be good too. Same thing though, steam them or like whip them through a food processor or like really mince them up with a good knife. Um, I mean, everything else should be covered in her food.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't mess with eggs because eggs will cause more inflammation. And like dogs don't really need eggs anyway. But that should be a really good start for her. And
Mhm.
again, just introduce stuff slowly because she like may be on the more sensitive side.
Of course she has to be.
I know we don't need explosive diarrhea.
No, and the whole time she was on canine choice, no matter what protein I had her on, she just had diarrhea. Um, and then on the Canadian Naturals and any raw that I've done so far, it seems like the bone content might be a little too high for her
Right.
because she's constantly having like really hard, dry like poop.
Like, are they like white, like turning white?
There are sometimes that they are. It's on and off, but for the most part, yes.
Yeah, so like you're right, it could be a sign of too much calcium. So you could add like the raw goat's milk would help with that because it'll add some fattiness. And if you're adding like the tripe and stuff, that will help too. The other thing is you could try to add fiber, but the thing with this is like a little fiber hardens it even more. You have to like get over where it's like too much fiber that it
That's
loosens
too
it.
much poop.
Yes, exactly. So it's like I would be worried if you weren't hitting that point and you were just like making her even worse. But the omega-3 should help with that too. Like fatty stuff usually makes their stool looser.
Yeah, what I thought with all this other stuff that I'll be putting in now, I thought that may help balance that because I'm minusing that 20 so
Yeah,
percent, it might just account by taking away that bone.
totally. That could totally fix the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Um,
that's it then. That's it. That's all the questions I had.
awesome. Well, I'll send you this follow-up email with the golden paste slash like those brands that I recommended. And then I'll send you the joint supplements too and see if those are available in Canada. It's like sometimes I laugh because I'm like, the countries are right next to each
They
other.
were right next to each other. It's so
Why can't he just ship? Like, come on.
yeah, I was so excited for the Darwins and I filled everything out, and then at the end it's like doesn't ship to Canada, and I was like, ah.
So annoying.
So
That's
like
so
I'll just have to drive to the border and have
annoying.
someone drop it out.
Right, I know, right? Just ship it to like upstate New York and drive over. Um, awesome. Any other final questions?
No, I think that's it. I if I go through and do all this and then have questions after, I'll just rebook and do another thing with you.
Yeah, and like honestly, because you booked for this one, it's free email support from here on out. So just shoot me an email. If it's something minor, like we can just do it over email. If it's something bigger, we can talk about doing another Zoom. But like most stuff, we can usually tackle over email.
Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that.
yeah.
With raw, it's just so overwhelming when you first get it. It's like I don't want to mess anything up, and then
Yeah, you're doing it the right way though by feeding a pre-made, balanced, like the DIY stuff. I'm sure you know, it's just so intricate. Like
it's too
tell
much
people,
work.
I just tell people like don't even mess with it. Like it's just not worth it for most people, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There were so many people that recommend it, but it's just having that time and then making sure you're getting the balance correct, and then obviously having to change it for dog and all
I
that
know.
freezer space you're gonna have to have for
I
all these
know.
organs and oh.
It's like it's also weird when it's like you open up your freezer to just like get a pizza and then there's like cow brain in your freezer. It's like that's not appetizing.
Already I've got like a small freezer. It's just the apartment top half freezer.
Yeah.
Majority of it's for her, and then the other half is for me. The
Yeah.
bottom half is just hers, and I've got like a tiny slot at the top.
Yeah. Sounds familiar. It's exactly you just described my own freezer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's way better than I do. So
Yes, I feel that. Awesome. Well, I'll put this email together right now, so keep an eye out for it. But otherwise, just shoot me any questions in the meantime. It was really great meeting you. You're doing a really good job, so I wouldn't worry too much.
yes, thank you. And I wish that there were more people that like more vets that had more information for this.
I know.
It kind of just leaves you in the dark. You got to do your own research, and that's it. That's
I know. I know. I feel that. Oh, take this down rfvs.com. See if it covers Canada, but it's the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society. And there's a directory that you can go in there and like input your where you live, and it will tell you what vets near you support raw feeding. So check that out.
yes, that would be cool. We only have, I think we've got like 3 or 4 vets here in town, and all of them are just sticklers against it. Your dog's gonna get salmonella. Don't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You're like, all right, cool. Sure.
Diet. It's corn and cornstarch and flour.
It's like, come on. It's like kind of common sense. Fresh food versus processed food. Come on. I feel that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, great to meet you. You're doing a great job. And then just keep an eye out for this email. I'll send it off in a couple minutes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.